With the new Guild Wars 2 Canthan expansion on the horizon, one of the features many suspect will arrive is alliances. Alliances were in the original Guild Wars faction expansion, which took place in Cantha, so it seems natural they would finally bring them at this time. Alliances have been long announced for World vs. World, but it feels like they have been delayed indefinitely. The first real posts detailing how alliances work we're in November 2018, and now we're in 2020. So yeah, it's been a while, and I think most people have lost sight or no longer really understand the purpose or function of alliances. So what exactly are alliances and world restructuring? It's important to understand that there are two parts to this feature, right? The world restructuring part and the alliances. They're both necessary. Alliances are a group of guilds that decide they want to be on the same world, and the game will put that alliance into the appropriate matchup. Alliances will have a maximum number of players and guilds for balance reasons, which means server communities will become smaller. Before alliances come out, players may identify with their server, which will have a long-standing identity. They most certainly can identify with their guild first, but the guild exists on a server. However, existing servers such as Maguma, Fort Rannick, Desolation, or Stormbluff Isles will no longer exist because of world restructuring. This is a huge issue as many players find that their community is a place to call home, and a lot of the identity players have built up will be gone. They will have to find new communities through alliance and stay with their community if they wish, but that will be limited to a lower alliance cap rather than server cap. But not all players wish to stay with their same server all the time. In fact, I believe many players feel that the game is not as alive as it really is because of how stagnant servers can be. Meeting new people can be a lot of fun, and that's kind of what the MMO experience is all about. And currently, World vs. Worlders don't get that as much unless they pay a costly transfer fee. This is basically what world restructuring is. It's the deciding of who participates in each matchup's world. As this image shows, there will be a number of guilds who opt into alliances, there will be guilds not in alliances, and there will be players not opted into guilds. And a combination of all of these will compose one whole world. There will be World vs. World seasons that people are locked into their servers for, but players will essentially be able to transfer for free at the end of each season by opting into another guild. Transfers will also be available in the middle of seasons, but they'll cost gems and have much more restriction. Essentially every season, which lasts maybe 8 weeks, there will be a reshuffling of players, guilds, and alliances into new worlds, which should create a more lively environment rather than having the same teammates all the time. But in a way, alliances and world restructuring are already here in a lesser form. World linking currently places 2 or more servers together, such as Anvil Rock, Borless Pass, and they'll be on the same team. These are calculated by population and performance and a lot of other things that ArenaNet has access to, and they'll attempt to create the same feeling as an alliance. The balance may be better once alliances and worlds are fully restructured, but for the most part, we have the organization here. That is an issue as well, though. How does ArenaNet balance something so imbalanced to be fair as possible? Because World vs. World is a 24/7 game mode, coverage and time zones are important. ANET has already attempted to remedy this with the skirmish system. This can be thought of as similar to the USA presidential election system, which is a republic. Instead of counting every vote, or in the case of World vs. World, every single point, the state will cast their whole representative vote for that candidate. Skirmishes are a bit different. There are 3 parties in each World vs. World matchup, and a skirmish lasts 2 hours. During a skirmish, the team with the most score gains 5 victory points, the second highest team gains 4 points, and the third gets 3. These victory points are eventually the deciding factor of who wins, not the war score. So no matter how hard a server is crushing the other at any point in time, they won't gain more than a 5 to 3 point differential. But also, no matter how close the matchup may be, servers that never gain a point lead over another server will gain much fewer victory points. This gives more comeback potential to servers with large gaps in their time zone coverage and allows world versus world to be an ever-persisting game while being slightly more balanced. Skirmishes along with server relinkings are all changes that came in since the start of development on alliances and world restructuring. If you think about it, in their post, they mention specifically that they are working on a live game, and so there are always a lot of moving parts. To me, this means that they're implementing these features into the game to prepare for alliances. So when the switch is finally flipped, not much will change. So if that's the case, we're already getting alliances and world restructuring pretty much there. So why do we need them? That's because the main issue with world versus world is not guilds or how fun the game mode is or how balanced it is. It's the motivation to win. I always found world versus world a nice place to chill and play the way you want to, as opposed to PvP, which is a bit more structured and has very clear win conditions. So how do we motivate players to win while also allowing them to play the way they want to? Obviously, giving players rewards that are meaningful and based on their performance is good, but it's difficult to calculate how much a single player affects the bigger picture of their world. The PIP system currently allows players to play how they want and receive comparable rewards, but in the end, the most profitable playstyle is to zerg, or basically gather up everyone in the same place. Now, there's nothing wrong with zerging, and I think that every world should have a zerg force that provides the main map presence, but when that is the only presence on the map because everyone has an incentive to do that, then it gets too large, too much strain on the servers, it becomes laggy and unfun. Constructing an omega blob and rushing from one place to the next isn't fun, and it also certainly isn't the best method to win. Rotating around and splitting up will definitely be better if there are enough competent groups, because there are a lot of time gates here and there, but there's really no incentive to win if it takes that much effort. You might as well just all mindlessly go from one place to the next, and if you win, that works. I think many more players would prefer to engage in smaller scale combat if it provided them and their team more, and winning actually was meaningful. The bloodlust on Borderlands should be worth war score and give more rewards to the specific players who capture and hold them, as this mechanic is already good for splitting up teams because they need to contest 6 different spots, right? So it's naturally kind of a roamer paradise. These ruins are also great for varied gameplay because of the dynamic terrain, unlike most other places which are just flat ground. It's a shame that they don't get visited more often, because this is where roamers should go to face smaller scale fights. Fights inside keeps and towers are also fun, but they can often be gated by, well, gates. Siege and supply are an integral part of the strategy of world versus world, but it also somewhat slows it down. Often this promotes brute forcing to get through gates and walls that are being defended by players. If smaller to medium-sized groups are running around split up, there would be less siege standoffs and more fights that require map rotation and awareness. So how can we keep the strategy while making it more interactive? Well, I believe a few changes should be made. First of all, righteous indignation was initially introduced to prevent trading objectives with the enemy for rewarding and abusing those rewards. Because it makes the objective lord invulnerable and deal more damage, it helps to finish off fights after a team has taken hold of the objective. But why do fights need to be that decisive? The current 5-minute duration can be reduced to half, and that would allow groups to split up and threaten to cap more objectives, and that would basically give more incentive to split up. Siege play can also be very interactive, but most players have no idea how to use it or would rather not spend their resources on it. This often makes people depend on a singular commander to deploy all the siege properly or even at all. Siege should probably be reworked completely and removed from the economy. So no more buying it on the TP or using any kind of resource to get it. You should have to obtain siege from in-game events or supply camps. So through the gameplay, not through the economy. And the siege that they obtain there will be limited and only last maybe a few hours before it disappears. So they'll need to make decisions on which siege to use and when. The siege should be accessible through the World vs. World UI, which can be triggered by the special action keybind rather than through inventory, or something like that. Mounts are nice, but they should be mainly a convenience addition to the game mode. They offer a good stomp utility, but otherwise should be less powerful. Their mount engage ability should do way less damage, and there should be a longer cast time to get on the mount to make you more vulnerable if you're trying to escape or chase after leaving combat. With these changes, I feel World vs. World will be much more meaningful, and along with alliances and seasons, there can be a truly meaningful reward given to worlds based on their performance. For example, all players who earned a certain number of pips during that season will get exclusive skins with better appearances depending on their world's placement in the season, or give players specific titles based on what role they played the most. So if you had a high kill-death ratio, then you can get a title of ganker, or if you captured tons of objectives, much more than you did killing people, you can get a tactician title. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are there better changes to create more meaningful interactions in World vs. World? Or are alliances what we really need? Or is it something else? Also, like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Enjoy.